What kills you first on another world? Most people say the cold or the fact there's nothing to breathe. Almost nobody says the weather. On Venus, the rain is sulphuric acid, and it never reaches the ground. Out past Uranus, it's diamond, or at least that's what the laboratory work suggests. 640 light years from here, there's a planet where the evening brings iron. 6 worlds. On every one of them, the thing that kills you comes down out of the sky. 2 of them are in this solar system. One of those 2 you could point a telescope at tonight. Start with the sky you've got. Above your head, right now, there's roughly 100 kilometers of air, thinning as it climbs, and the whole column of it is pressing on every square centimeter of your body with a little over 1 kilogram of force. Spread across the full surface of an adult, that comes to somewhere near 20 tons. You don't feel any of it, because the same pressure is inside you pushing out, and the 2 have been balanced since the day you were born. An atmosphere is really only 3 numbers. How much of it there is, what it's made of, how fast it moves. Earth's 3 are unremarkable in a way that turns out to matter enormously. 1 bar of pressure at the surface, 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, both of them chemically polite. Wind that has never, in the whole span of instrumented history, exceeded 408 kilometers an hour, and that was a single gust off a cyclone in April 1996, in one place, for a moment. Those numbers are the reason water can sit on the surface as a liquid instead of boiling away or locking solid, and the reason molecules can hold together long enough to be assembled into something that wonders about this. Move any of those numbers and none of it holds. Water is only liquid inside a narrow band of pressure and temperature, and the band is a good deal narrower than most people assume. None of it is a law. Change the mass and the sky becomes a press. Change the chemistry and it becomes a solvent. Change the speed and it turns into a blade. Change all 3 at once and the word weather stops describing anything you'd recognize. Venus is the closest planet to Earth, almost exactly the same size, and for a long time people assumed there were swamps underneath the cloud. There aren't. The surface sits at 92 times Earth's atmospheric pressure, which is what you'd find 900 meters down in the ocean, and it holds that pressure at 465 degrees. The air is 96.5% carbon dioxide. Wrapped around the whole planet without a single gap is a permanent deck of sulphuric acid cloud. It rains there, measurably, continuously, every day. Droplets of sulphuric acid condense in the upper cloud and begin to fall. Not one drop has ever reached the ground. The lower atmosphere is so hot that the acid boils off on the way down, tens of kilometers up, and the vapor rises and condenses and falls again. On Earth you can watch a weak version of this over a desert, grey streamers hanging beneath a cloud that stop in mid-air and go no further. It's called Virga. On Venus it's the entire water cycle of a planet, running in acid, permanently unfinished. There may also be lightning in that cloud. Detections go back to the 1970s, and they've been argued over ever since, so put it down as unresolved rather than settled. And the sky is moving. Venus turns on its axis once every 243 Earth days. Its atmosphere goes round the planet in about 4. The ground is very nearly still, and the air above it is traveling 60 times faster. We've stood on that surface twice, briefly. Venera 7 landed in December 1970 and transmitted for 23 minutes. Venera 13 came down on the 1st of March, 1982, returned the first color photographs ever taken on the surface of another planet. Voyager 2 passed Neptune on the 25th of August, 1989, clearing the cloud tops by about 4,950 kilometers. That's the only time anything built on Earth has been there. Everything we understand about Neptune's weather at close range, we learned across a few days, 37 years ago. What it found was the fastest wind in the solar system, somewhere above 2,000 kilometers an hour, on a world that receives roughly 1/900th of the sunlight Earth does. Almost no energy is arriving from outside. Neptune is running that weather on heat left over from its own formation. It radiates more than twice the energy it receives from the sun. Whatever drives those winds is inside the planet, not above it. Voyager 2 also photographed a storm the size of our planet, dark, oval, turning anti-clockwise once every 16 days. It was called the Great Dark Spot. When Hubble looked in 1994, it wasn't there. No remnant, no scar, no slow collapse caught in the act. A storm wider than Earth had stopped existing during the 5 years when nobody was watching. Now go downward, because Neptune has no surface to stop you. Somewhere around 10,000 kilometers beneath the cloud tops, the methane in that atmosphere is under enough pressure to be pulled apart, and the carbon that comes loose is squeezed into diamond. We have never seen this, and we can't. What we have is an experiment. In August 2017, at the SLAC accelerator in California, plastic was shock compressed with lasers while an X-ray beam watched, and nanometer-scale diamonds formed in under a billionth of a second. A follow-up published in January 2024 found the process begins at lower pressures than anyone expected. So it's a strong inference, not an observation. We don't know that it rains diamond inside Neptune. What we know is that when you do that to those ingredients in a laboratory on Earth, diamond is what you get. 63 light-years away, in the constellation of Vulpecula, there's a planet the color of Earth seen from orbit. HD 189733b is a gas giant about the size of Jupiter, going round its star every 2.2 days at roughly 1/30th of the distance between us and the Sun. In 2013, Hubble measured the light it reflects and found it deep blue, cobalt more or less. The blue you'd photograph through a window over the Pacific. The blue isn't water, there's no ocean there, and probably no liquid of any kind. It comes from a haze of silicate particles held high in the atmosphere, scattering blue light more efficiently than red. In air that sits above 1,000 degrees, silicate at those temperatures is molten glass. So the standard picture of HD 189733b, the one NASA itself uses, is that it rains glass there. The wind was measured in 2015 by a team at Warwick who watched the sodium absorption line in that atmosphere shift as the planet crossed the face of its star, one limb of it moving towards us and the other away. 8,690 kilometers an hour, blowing from the lit side into the dark. Nothing falls on HD 189733b. It gets thrown sideways, at 7 times the speed of sound in the air you're breathing, in glass, and the planet is losing. In April 2010, Hubble looked and saw an ordinary atmosphere. In September 2011, hours after the Swift satellite caught an X-ray flare off the star, Hubble looked again and saw a plume, at least 1,000 tons of gas per second, leaving at over 480,000 kilometers an hour. The flare made the star 4 times brighter in X-rays for a few hours. That was enough to visibly change the shape of a planet's atmosphere 63 light-years away. HD 189733b takes something like 3 million times the X-ray dose Earth does. It's being disassembled from the top. 640 light-years away in Pisces, WASP 76b goes round its star in a day and a half, and it's tidally locked. One hemisphere faces the star forever, the other has never seen it. There's no sunrise there, and no sunset. There's a permanent line between the two, an evening that has been the same evening since the planet formed. On the day side it sits above 2,400 degrees, hot enough to boil metal. On the night side it's around 1,500, which is still hot enough to melt everything you have ever touched. In 2020, a team using the espresso spectrograph on the Very Large Telescope in Chile read the starlight coming through that atmosphere as the planet passed in front and found iron vapor at the evening edge of the day side. Then they looked at the morning edge, where night gives way back to day, and the iron wasn't there. Something takes it out of the air in the dark. The measurement itself is solid, and archival data from a second instrument confirmed the asymmetry a year later. What causes it is a model rather than a picture, and the model says the vapor is carried into the night, cools, condenses, and falls. It was the first time anyone had measured chemistry changing from one side of a planet to the other, on a world nobody has ever seen as anything more than a dip in the brightness of a star. Here's the detail that gets under the skin. WASP 76b has no surface. There's no ground for iron to land on. A droplet of molten metal condenses out of the night air and starts to descend, and as it goes the atmosphere beneath it grows hotter and denser, and somewhere down there it evaporates again, rises, drifts back around into the light, and does the whole thing over. It has been raining iron on that planet for as long as the planet has existed, and not one drop has ever arrived anywhere. K2-141b is about the size of Earth, roughly 200 light-years away, and it orbits so close to its star that a year there lasts about 7 hours. Everything after this sentence comes from a computer model published in November 2020, built on data from the Kepler and Spitzer telescopes. It hasn't been observed directly. Treat it as a forecast. The forecast says 2/3 of the planet lies in permanent daylight, because the star is close enough to light more than a hemisphere. That daylit region sits near 3000 degrees, which is past melting for rock and well into boiling. Beneath it lies an ocean of magma about 100 kilometers deep. Rock evaporates off that ocean. Sodium first, then silicon monoxide, then silicon dioxide, lifting away as vapor into a thin atmosphere made of nothing but vaporized ground. Supersonic wind takes it from there. Over 5,000 kilometers an hour, out across the Terminator, into a night that sits below -200 degrees. And there the rock comes down as rain and as snow, settling onto the dark side, while the magma creeps slowly back towards the light to be boiled off again. That night side has never been lit. Below -200 degrees, in permanent dark, it's snowing rock onto ground that has never once been warm. The model also says the atmosphere reaches only a little way past the shore of that magma ocean. Out on the cold side, there's essentially nothing overhead at all. The weather there is the planet, lifted up, carried and set down somewhere else, over and over. The cycle doesn't balance either. The return flow through the magma is slower than the evaporation, so the composition drifts. Given long enough, the model says, K2-141b will have rearranged its own surface and its own air into something with a different chemistry altogether. Nothing will have struck it. Nothing will have landed on it. The world weathering itself away from the top down, in silence, at supersonic speed. The last of the 6 is 670 light-years away, and it's the far end of the dial. KLT9b is a gas giant nearly 3 times the mass of Jupiter at half the density, orbiting a blue star roughly twice as hot as the Sun, once every day and a half. Its day side sits around 4,300 degrees. That is hotter than most of the stars in this galaxy. Red dwarfs, the commonest kind of star there is, have cooler surfaces than this planet's afternoon. You wouldn't say KLT9b was lit by anything. It glows the way a star glows, in its own right, because it's hot enough to. In January 2020, a team published Spitzer measurements of how heat moves around it, and found something you shouldn't need in order to describe weather. At those temperatures, hydrogen molecules don't survive. On the day side, the bonds break and the molecules come apart into loose atoms. The circulation carries those atoms round to the night side, where it's cool enough, relatively speaking, for them to find each other and reform. Then they're carried back into the light and torn apart again. That's the weather system. Chemistry making and unmaking itself continuously for as long as the planet lasts, which won't be forever. The star is stripping it. KLT9b orbits close enough that its atmosphere is streaming away into space, and the hydrogen it loses doesn't come back. How long it has left is an estimate rather than a measurement, and the estimates run into the hundreds of millions of years. That sounds like a reprieve until you notice it's shorter than the time-complex life has existed on Earth. There's no rain on this one. There's nothing left that could fall. The dial has been turned so far that the sky has stopped being a place where anything can condense at all, and the planet is quietly evaporating into the light of a star it can't get away from. Every sky in this video is built out of things that exist in yours: silicon, iron, carbon, sodium, hydrogen. The glass being thrown sideways across HD 189733b is the same element as the sand on a beach. The iron condensing in the dark on WASP 76b is the same iron that's in your blood right now. Nothing exotic was required for any of it. What separates a sky you can breathe from a sky that kills you is temperature and pressure, and neither of those belongs to the material. You're made from the same shortlist. What turned the list into a person was the conditions it got assembled under. So, 100 kilometers of nitrogen and oxygen over your head at a temperature that lets water stay liquid and lets molecules hold together long enough to become you. Nothing about that was promised. It's just the sky you happen to be born under.